older BHOs that have vulnerabilities, and then you automatically surf the web. So you go to a website, wait for a couple of seconds, go to the next website, wait for a couple of seconds, and then go to the next. And in the meantime, you also observe the system state, so that you can detect if the website you just visited wants to exploit your system. For example, there are many gaming websites or wallpaper websites, also porn websites that are malicious and that use so-called drive-by downloads to compromise your systems. If we find such a website, basically the client-side honeypots detects that it's attacked and then also extracts from the changes to the system also the malware binary. So then we get the keylogger in an automated way. I just mentioned a few systems that are available. All of them are open source. At our lab, we use 7 instances of Capture HPC, which constantly surf the web, and we can analyze a couple of hundred or a couple of thousands sites per day, and then regularly find new malware with this kind of client-side honeypots. Another interesting way to get attacked is just spam traps. So just collect spam and then watch for the attachments. As we've seen earlier on, this UPS mail. Basically just get the attachment and the attachment already contains the keylogger. Or if the spam mail contains a link, we just follow the link with a honey client and then we go to the website and see whether the website wants to attack us. So this is the way we use in order to collect samples. We also have quite a lot of user submissions to a site that I mentioned in the next slide. So there we get constantly new malware. So currently I think we have more than 400,000 binaries within our database. In the second phase, we analyze those malware binaries that we've collected with the help of our honeypots. We use a tool called CW Sandbox, which was developed as part of a diploma thesis, and then now Carsten, he's a PhD student also at our lab. So he works on the system since more than 2 years. And the basic idea is that we have the malware sample, we execute it within a controlled environment, and then closely observe during runtime what the malware is doing. For example, what files are created, what registry keys are changed, or what network communication the malware initiates. And then CW Sandbox basically does this observation, and after a certain timeout, it generates an analysis report in XML format so that we can then also process via other tools. We have a public front end at cwsandbox.org where you can just submit samples. So if you have a suspicious file, which can be either an executable or now we also support PDF files, just submit them to us and then within a couple of minutes you should receive an analysis report which basically contains the information we observed while running the particular sample that you sent to us. Besides doing this monitoring, we also need to do some other things. For example, because not all keylogger samples immediately access the drop zone. For example, they can have a hard-coded config, so the keylogger knows already what kind of sites should be observed. Or the keylogger only contacts the drop zone once it has found something interesting. So once it has found some credentials, only then those credentials are sent to the drop zones. Another thing is that BHOs are only started when IE starts up. So we need to actually start IE in order to see what the BHO is doing. And therefore, basically what we have implemented is some kind of emulation of human behavior. So basically we do what a normal user does. So we go to websites. For example, we go to web.de and then log in there with a username and a password. We also enter credentials in websites. We can send out emails. We can do basically what a typical user also does in order to basically trick the victim into thinking that a real human is doing something. Question?
What is the life cycle of these systems?
Oh, sorry. The life cycle of those systems, what systems?
Like the client honeypots, are they resetted once a specific...
Yeah, so typically those systems are resetted either when we detect a malicious website, so once we are exploited, yeah, basically only then, yeah.
And how do you simulate the logging in of, say, like a bank, like a, say, Wachovia, for example?
Pardon, I didn't get...
How do you simulate within the honeypot logging into a bank or?
For example, Postbank.de, they have a demo account where you can basically go there and do transactions. And we also, basically what we did, we developed a tool that basically does this based on AutoIt, which is a scripting language. We have 17 behavior templates that do typical things like go to a website, log in, send an email, do something else. And then those can be combined in an arbitrary way in order to basically do whatever you want to do. We'll release this next year, hopefully under GPL. And what we also do within this, our analysis environment is we deposit some credentials within the protected storage in order to offer some more bait to the keylogger. This is an example of such a CW Sandbox report. Again, probably you cannot see it in the back, but I'll explain it. So we see different things, like, for example, the file changes, so which files are changed, the registry changes, and most interesting is what is on this slide, the network activity. For example, we see that the malware tries to download from a specific URL a file, or later on it posts some data to a specific URL. And this is then probably the drop zone, since the data are posted from the infected machine to another site, and this is exactly what the drop zone looks like. If we go to this URL, again we see an empty site. In this case, we need to go to /in.php, and again we see some kind of login formula. In this case, it's Zeus. Then again, some magic appears, and then we get the credentials that we've also seen earlier on. So in the first phase, we automatically get the malware samples. In the second phase, we do the dynamic analysis together with the user simulation. And then in the third phase, when we know where the drop zone is located, we have a monitoring system which basically periodically contacts the drop zone and then retrieves information from there in different ways. We've completely automated all those steps. We analyzed about 2,000 banking Trojans with CW Sandbox between April and October. In total, we found more than 140 NetHell and more than 200 Zeus drop zones. In the meantime, we have even more, so now we have more than 300 of those drop zones in total. And for a little bit more than 70 of those, we got complete access to the drop zone. So we got complete access to all data that's stored in the drop zone. In total, these were 33 gigabyte of data, so just whatever the victims entered on websites and then protected storage, cookies, and all this kind of information, we got in our collection system. In total, we had information about more than 170,000 victims, so quite a lot of infected systems are out there. Just a disclaimer, so of course the information that we collected during the study is very sensitive. So this contains passwords from users, it contains bank account information, and similar very sensitive information, so handle this with care. Unfortunately, we are not in a position to inform each victim since we are just a university, and therefore we had a collaboration with AustCERT, which is the CERT, so Computer Emergency Response Team of Australia, with whom we have a longer relationship, especially in the area of honeypots, and they can take care of this data, so they have a notification system. So we handed over this 33 gigabyte of data to them, and then they notified the victims. So since we cannot do it, they did the job for us. Okay, so we have now this data and now some statistics. So in order to learn what the attackers are doing, what kind of information they are stealing, and what they can do with our stolen data. In the beginning, just a few examples. So this is just an overview of what amount of data was stolen in the individual drop zones. These are the top 3 drop zones where we found between a few gigabytes and a few hundred megabytes of data. The number of victims was between 20,000 and 10,000 for each single drop zone. The drop zones themselves were located typically either in Asia, in Russia, or also within the US, some also within Europe. So it's rather diverse. There's no single country, no single autonomous system that's most prevalent, so it's pretty diverse, the whole threat. What's also interesting is the lifetime, so how long the individual drop zones are online. In total, we have about 60 days, so about 2 months that each drop zone is online. So the time we first find it until it goes offline. So 2 months in which the attackers can basically just collect information from this one drop zone. This figure basically shows where the victims are located. So the 160,000 NetHell victims. On the x-axis you see the IP space, so all IP addresses. On the y-axis the number of victims in a cumulative distribution. And you see that there are only 2 basically network ranges in which most of the victims are located. So these are the typical dial-up ranges where basically your mother or your grandma basically clicks on a link and then their information are stolen. Some statistic for Zeus. There we have found only about 10,000 infected machines. Here we get an overview of what kind of operating system they are running. So most of the machines are running on the latest patch level. So XP Service Pack 2 was the latest patch level during most of the time of the study. So we saw that most people were patched, but they failed to do basic security measurements. So they clicked on the links, they opened the attachments, and then they were infected. So patches don't help always. If you want to infect the victim, just do social engineering and do not exploit vulnerabilities. These are basically the banking targets. So what kind of banks are the typical targets by the keyloggers? Here we see, for example, Volksbanken or also Fiducia relative, so very high within the statistics. This basically due to the fact that I think they tested most of the stuff in Germany, and those, especially Fiducia, is some kind of provider that does the banking infrastructure for many banks within Germany. OSMP is something similar within Russia, and then we see ABN AMRO and Santana, which are basically big banks within Spain and the Netherlands, which are the typical targets. Some statistics for the stolen credentials. First, we start with the Anacron prices, which this is taken from a study by Symantec. Other antivirus vendors also periodically, so typically every 6 months or every year, they do a very similar study where they basically publish what a certain credential costs on the underground market. For example, a bank account typically costs between $10 and $1,000. Credit cards are rather cheap, between 40 cents and $20. Identities are a bit higher priced. Online auction site passwords, and then you see the prices. So this is basically what a stolen credential is worth on the underground market. Just to give you an overview of how valuable something is. We'll later on use this table for some comparisons. So we have those 33 gigabytes of data, and now the challenge is how do we find the credentials? So how do we know what's interesting? So what is actually a username? What is a password? Since we want to do this in a rather generic way. Fortunately, NetHell helps us here. Since NetHell, as we've seen earlier on, it basically always annotates. Once it's found something, it annotates it with the key locked and the keys read keywords. And then if we search in this line, we see, okay, for login.live.com, password is the form field name that's interesting for us. So we just search for this keys read, key locked, and then we find out, okay, for login.live.com, password is an interesting field since the keylogger observed this particular HTML form. And we use this kind of information in order to build site-specific models. So for the different websites, we basically build a model which basically tells us for a given URL which form fields are interesting. So for example, I hope you can read this also later in the back. For login.live.com, we find out that the form fields login and password are interesting since they contain the username and also the password. Or for paypal.com, the field names are login_email and login_password. And we use this in order to build, I think, more than 500,000 models for the different URLs we've seen during our study. So for each URL, we now know which form fields are interesting. This helps us then, for example, to observe what kind of banks are typically targeted. So for example, we found about 2,200 PayPal accounts, so username, password, with which an attacker can then log in and do immediate transactions, since there's no really security measurements within PayPal.